I do agree with what Dato Ramli mentioned just now. Sometimes things are done with the intention of bringing out the best in somebody else, a subordinate or a student. So there could be instances like this where that particular interaction is then interpreted as bullying. It may not be so. Really to understand that bullying involves power dynamics, number one. Somebody who thinks of themselves as mightier than the other. The intention behind bullying is really to demean an individual, not to educate them, not to bring the best out of them, but the intention is always to demean and to create a hostile environment. So if you looked at it from that perspective, then if everybody who undergoes military training, for example, now they know what that is, what they're getting into, and that's what military training is about. So for somebody in the military to say that he was bullied by his superior because of a certain perintah that was given, that was construed as something that's demeaning to that individual, then I think it has to be seen in the context as well, right? So it is a bit difficult to really see what is bullying and what is not, but clearly bullying has got a negative intention, and that intention is nothing to lift up that person or make the person better, but it is to destroy that individual. To that. And if you think that a victim of bullying should take certain measures before probably approaching a sort of a committee or a tribunal or whatever, and that would be to document the incident of bullying very correctly, with the time, the date, and the context, or the where it was done and things like that. So documentation is extremely important. That's one. Two, when it comes to bullying, I would advise the victim not to retaliate or to be abusive towards the person who is bullying, because that might not really serve their own purpose eventually. Just switch off to the bully, the person who bullies, but document everything correctly, and don't let what you say be misinterpreted and then be equated with bullying, being abusive towards that person. They might earlier suspect but don't know what are the steps to take in order to approach an employee who has a problem. But this also includes an understanding of what constitutes bullying and what is harassment, because some people might think that they're just making jokes about each other and saying whatever they like. But in today's world, things have, no longer accepted to say things like what they used to do, and what is politically right, what is not. So that course actually helps line managers, HR managers in companies understand this. But at a higher level, I think the owners of the company, the board of directors, the general managers, and all these people have got a different interest in the company, and they might not, fully agree that they have to go through the nitty-gritty of all this and understand what bullying is. They ultimately want the job done. They want money. They want to see profits. So it's difficult to convince those people at that higher level. They'll say, okay, fine, let's have a mechanism here where you have a committee, an independent committee listening to your complaints and things like that. But what we have to do now, the challenge is to convince the owners of these companies, or those directors and all that at that level, the C-suites, to know that what they are doing is not a compassionate measure, but something that makes business sense. Why not try to say, whether they pretend to feel that way or whatever, at least to say that we have anti-bullying mechanisms in place. That increases the profile of the company, and that also in some way contributes to the productivity of the company, because you're going to have less turnover rates of employees. They're feeling better, they're feeling happier in the organization. So I think this whole thing about being compassionate, to be mental health sensitive, all that is very nice, but when it comes to action, ultimately it's, it's all about profitability. So you have to turn this into something profitable, something that increases the profile of the organization. And that is where I think the answer is as far as counseling is concerned, because you have already dealt with this in terms of educating, building capacity at the management level and at the lower level. Right? The rest is all about the mechanism of it and how robust is the company policy.